to order. So we'll start with comments from the public on agenda items. All right, since I don't see any, we'll move to the first item, which is the overnight trip request. So there are 3 of them.
Jason can do both of them, correct?
Yes, the first 2.
So we'll start everybody up. Board members and questions.
Do you need extra copies of the proposals? Or do you have them on?
We
Okay.
have it on here.
Yeah, we have it online. If you have a copy, I
I
would
do.
take it and I can.
I knew you were going to do that. I wouldn't have gotten up.
Trying to make it easy on you.
So many of those a day when you get older.
There you go. Hold on, that's just one. That's just one. I'm gonna make it back. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. First of all, I'd just like to thank you. I know this is, we typically have it every other month, and this is a special meeting for the Activities Committee. My name is Jason Plowa. I represent the High School Ski and Board Club. Ross Owens is also here, and he's one of our other co-advisors. The first proposal we have is for a trip to Utah. It is a very unprecedented trip. We've never done that before. A group of students, some of them are here tonight, approached me about looking into a trip like this. With that being said, I've never done a trip like that before. Personally, I have, but not with a group of kids per se. So the first step was to reach out to our fellow districts. So we had a roundtable discussion with representatives from both North Penn, Plymouth Whitemarsh, Perkiomen Valley, and Methacton. 3 of those 4 schools all do trips of this nature. So I basically modeled this proposal after what they have done. Happer Horseshoe is probably the flagship ski and board club for the area. They've done this trip every year since 2005. They may have missed 1 or 2 years. So they do this almost on a yearly basis. So a lot of the things that I put together for you is based upon what they do. So we've had lengthy discussions with all of the representatives there just to try and troubleshoot and find out the best way to approach a trip like this. This is open for any student, 9th through 12th grade, and both trips are similar to that. The ideal time that we're looking at going is President's Day weekend, which is the 12th to the 16th. We would be leaving Friday morning, which is right after parent conferences at the high school with conferences Thursday evening, and we'd be returning, Tuesday the 16th. So the students would miss 1 school day. Obviously, they would be responsible for anything that they miss. They would have to be in good academic standing. They'd also have to, if they're getting in trouble per se for school, they wouldn't be permitted to go. And that's the same policy we've had for the Blue Mountain trips in the past and also the Vermont trips in the past. We would have 2 travel days, 3 days of skiing. So we would travel on Friday and Tuesday, ski Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's purely extracurricular. It's meant to offer an active and enjoyable experience for the kids. It's definitely a great opportunity for them to, socialize with one another, as well as experience life outside of Pennridge, whether it's the Blue trip, the Killington trip, or this trip to Utah. As I said, it's the first time this has ever been done. I've utilized as many resources as possible with the neighboring districts while putting this proposal together. As far as cost, I talked to the representatives at North Penn. They haven't done a ski trip like this, but they go to Disney World every year. So I talked to them about how they run their trip. And as far as the cost is concerned, I broke it down to be between $1,400 and $1,500. The question was brought up about fundraising. I've told the students that I've met already that we're not going to do fundraising for this particular trip. And the reason behind that is because the Ski and Board Club has over 200 students in it. This year we took 180 students to Blue Mountain, we took 50 students to Killington, and then this would be some same students, some additional students. So for us to fundraise, we would have to figure out a way to spread it out evenly amongst everyone in the club, and that would be a huge undertaking. So my advice to the kids was to get a job, to budget your money. Ask if you have a birthday coming up, save your money from your birthday and put towards this. And I think there's valuable lessons that can be learned there as well, as far as budgeting and planning for the future and things like that. As far as the chaperones are concerned, I don't really know who the chaperones will be. I know I'm definitely going if this is approved. And I have a list of chaperones that are all district employees here at the high school that have done the skateboard club for years. There's a sample itinerary on there. Each day includes meals together as a group. Each day includes a safety meeting. I'll get into the transportation a little bit, but you can go through the itinerary there. For transportation, obviously we'd be flying there. We're going to leave from Philadelphia, arrive in Salt Lake City. One of the reasons why I chose Utah for the proposal is, although flights might be cheaper to Colorado, the housing is cheaper in Utah. Not only that, Utah's a lower elevation, so you don't have as much of a risk of altitude sickness. If you have been out west, sometimes that can be not a fun experience to go through. While we're there, there's a rental car company called Rugged Rentals. The idea is to have passenger vans for people movers, to have a four-wheel drive SUV as kind of like your chase car or your emergency vehicle. You need to run out to the pharmacy, you need to go to the grocery store, things like that. And then you have a four-wheel drive pickup truck for your equipment. From talking to the other advisors, their idea was just to have an extra of everything. So if we have 3 vehicles, we have at least 4 adult drivers. That way, if something happens, we have a contingency plan. As far as the lodging is concerned, in order to keep costs low, we'd be renting a property out there, a house out there. I would be up front with the people and let them know that we are a high school club and we are coming out to stay in your house. From talking with some of the other chaperones from other schools, I think they've only had one issue over all the years where people weren't comfortable with high school kids coming and staying there. Basically, it will be determined who sleeps where, and it goes through all that. So a lot of the houses out there are big, and they have rooms with multiple bunks and private bathrooms and all these. So ideally, we would look for something like that would accommodate our group as best as possible. The main reason why we would do this is because it saves a lot of money. The kids staying in hotels out there, especially during peak ski season, will be very expensive. And there's more amenities for the kids, more room, and I think it will just add to the experience for them. Meals will be provided out there. There is a company that I've found that you send them a grocery list, they'll do the shopping for you for a small fee, and they stock the house for you, so when you show up, everything is already there. Like, you can personalize any of the menu items that you want, so if there's any food restrictions, that's taken care of. All of the breakfasts and dinners will be done as a group, where we're going to cook right there in the house, we're going to clean right there in the house. Lunches are going to be either packed lunches, which will give the kids an opportunity to, or they can buy lunch on their own. I'm going to suggest that they pack a lunch just because it gets expensive on the ski mountain. And then we're planning one dinner out as a group at a local restaurant. I included a bunch of links of the different places that we'd be attending, as well as the rental car companies, the flight companies, and things like that. That's pretty much it. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. This is unprecedented here at Pennridge. Do you have any at this time that I might be able to answer?
I have a few questions.
Sure.
So what's your minimum number of students to run the trip?
I think I need at least 10 kids to go. I had a meeting after school last week, and I had 32 kids sign up. Now, it doesn't mean anything. They know this is a preliminary meeting. It's to gauge interest. And I put a PowerPoint presentation together, and I went over everything I went over with you, rules and regs and things like that as well. And 32 students signed up. Obviously, I don't think that 32 students will go forward with the trip if it is approved. The max, and I came to this number from talking with other chaperones from other schools, is somewhere between 20 and 25, but that's also dependent on the number of chaperones that I can get. I forgot to mention, my chaperone ratio, I want it to be 5 to 1, just because it is, we normally do 10 to 1, however, because it's a trip to this magnitude, the more chaperones I have, the better.
You mentioned having 3 vehicles and 4 drivers, so if you have...
Well, that's based upon numbers. So if I have 25 kids that go, I would want 5 chaperones. So I would have 4 vehicles, 5 drivers, 2 15-passenger vans, an SUV, and then the pickup truck.
And so if you only have 10 students sign up, how many chaperones would you
I would have three, two vehicles and then with the extra driver.
So then you'd have a ratio of 3 to
Can you
1.
speak
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
please?
And would they all be teachers? You wouldn't take any parents?
I mean, that can be discussed later with everything with clearances and the latest with what's coming on from the state. I think that's the easiest right now. I know that I have a list of chaperones that are willing to go. But again, that's something that can be discussed later.
And what happens if Friday the 12th is a snow makeup day? Because it is a snow makeup day.
I'm not sure. I don't have an answer to that question.
Because
I
that
think
would
it all
be 2 days
depends.
of missed school, right?
Yeah, well, that would be 2 days of missed school, yes.
And if they're all teachers, then that's 2 days of subs.
Correct.
And what about cancellations? Because what if you can't go because of snow? If you're snowed in or the airport's closed? or
This
something?
actually happened once to the Haverhorsham School District where they had to delay their trip. And basically, it turned out that they were short chaperones. Luckily, it was a small group. So instead of 4 chaperones, they took 2 chaperones. And I think they only had 10 to 12 kids. So the ratio was a little bit less as far as adult to student. But they still did the trip. It was delayed a few days. So the airlines worked with them, the accommodations for them, they all worked with them. Obviously, it affected the school calendar year as far as what dates the kids missed.
Right, so it was still, I mean, you think you would still go that weekend or you would take a different
I
weekend?
can't answer that. I mean, with a trip of this magnitude, it's planned so far in advance, so if your flights get canceled, then you would have to work with the airlines to figure something out with regards to that. If we can't go at all and it gets canceled, I mean, I would suggest to the students that they get travel insurance. So they might lose some money, but it's not everything. At least that's what I have done in the past.
Right, because if it's canceled and you have to pick a different weekend, they could potentially miss 3 days of school then. Right,
Correct.
if you don't have the
Correct.
President's weekend with the days off. How many students do you think would do both the Killington and the Utah trip because they're 1 week apart?
I'm not sure, and this is in addition, I should have mentioned that earlier. We still want to offer the Blue Mountain trips as well as the Vermont trips, so this is just something else to add, just to kind of grow the ski and board club and provide more of an opportunity. I'm not really sure how many students, I'm sure there might be a couple that would want to do both. That's a big financial commitment as well, so I don't think there'd be too many, but I don't have an answer to that.
When are you looking to have a commitment date by, from the students that are going to be participating? Just because you said, approximately 12 to 24, which will obviously influence your lodging.
Mhm.
If ideally 24, you'd have 12 per house, I guess you could say.
So
But if you fell somewhere in the middle,
what I'm proposing right now is that September 1st, the students need to submit a letter of interest along with an application and a $100 deposit. And then by August 1st, they would need half of the deposit. Or October 1st, thank you. October 1st, they would need half of the deposit. So that way there's enough there where if the rental company for the lodging needs to pull out the deposit, they can do that. The flights, they can pull out that money. And then the remaining balance wouldn't be due till January, I think, 9th. Don't know if I put that in the proposal.
and just based on that approximate numbers, you still feel confident that you're, I understand it's a rough estimate of the 1,400, but that you should, if you're on the low side, that you're still going to stay within that range?
Yes, absolutely. And I broke it down between rental vehicle, lodging, food, lift ticket. And I padded the extra numbers. I shot high, so it could be less than 1,400. It all depends on, what the lodging we get, what the flights are, how many kids sign up, and things of that nature. I priced out a lot of the different mountains out there, and the reason why I chose Powder Mountain and Snow Basin is because they're not off the beaten path, but they're not the big resorts that everybody goes to. On President's Day weekend, I've actually skied there that weekend, and I've dealt with crowds, and that's never fun. not only are these mountains less crowded, but they're also cheaper. I found a 2-day lift ticket for about half the cost of a 1-day ticket out there. Or, I'm sorry, 2-day lift ticket for the same price as a 1-day ticket for some of the larger mountains, which is why I chose this, to try to make it more cost effective.
Other questions? Dr. Barth, have we done any just extracurricular trips like this? I mean, did we used to have a senior trip or anything else like this?
During my time, I don't think so. I know others, in talking to Jason and talking with Mr. Bowen at other schools, have done something like this, and they would like to try this, so we've not done this in the past. But really, it's, up to the board. I guess the high school principal, I check with her, she supports them at least trying it, so I don't want to not support something that she thinks is a good idea. I did say, are you crazy? And she said, so let's be candid here, so.
She said the same thing.
So,
All right, well, so if people support it, then we would put it on the Monday night agenda. So I guess, why don't we talk about the Killington
Sure.
trip, and then,
The Killington proposal is very similar, actually pretty much the same as last year. That would be weekend prior in February with the alternate date at the end of the month. Typically, that trip, we leave on a Friday, we leave around 1 o'clock. We get up there, check into the hotel, the kids spend the night in the hotel, and we ski at Killington Resort on Saturday and Sunday and come home. This year, it's kind of tough when you're trying to gauge a price point. I was actually a little high. So what I did was I called up the mountain and we got them to send us meal vouchers. So when each student got there, they each got a meal voucher for both Saturday and Sunday. So they loved it because they got free food, which they already paid for. But so we had 49 students. We had five adults. We got snow up there for the first time in ever since I can remember. So the kids had a phenomenal time. The conditions were great. The bad thing was the winter was so great in New England this year. They had so much snow that the roof caved into the pool. I didn't tell the kids before this, and I didn't tell them until we got there. I was nervous. I assured them at the Holiday Inn that our kids are great. They're not going to complain to you. If they do, let me know, and I'll take care of it. They were phenomenal. And the best part about that was it forced the kids to interact with each other. And they're playing games in the lobbies and the hallways with their phones, and I don't even know what they were doing. But it was awesome. It was a great experience. And some of us chaperones, of course, they dragged us out there, and so we were playing these games with them, and it was really neat to see them interact on a social level, not just texting back and forth and doing all these other things. But conditions were great. Nobody got hurt. One of the reasons why we choose Killington is because it has an on-site medical facility, so if someone gets hurt, it's right there. So there were times where kids have broken arms in the past, and when we got there, they already had a cast on. So it's a really nice facility that they have. We used to have 2 buses go. We haven't taken 2 buses in a number of years. So that's pretty much the way that the numbers have worked out. This year, the trip was $345. I kept that price point the same. So it'll be roughly around the same thing once I talk to the hotels and the ski companies and the bus companies and put everything together. I'll have a better idea, but it shouldn't change much. So it's going to be right around that area. We return Sunday evening about 10 o'clock, and the kids are in school the next day. Obviously, with all the trips, they must be in good academic standing. I did have to remove a few kids from the trips this year, more so the Blue Mountain trip, not so much the Killington trip. This year, we actually had a waiting list for the Killington trip, so a couple students that, for whatever reason, could not attend, they were able to get off the trip, and someone from the waiting list was able to get on. Aside from that, we stay at the Holiday Inn in Rutland just because it's a central location. It's not as far north as some of the other resorts. It has all the amenities that the kids need: the Wi-Fi, the pool, the weight room, the sauna. Obviously, they couldn't use the pool this year, but they managed to survive. and it's only about 20 minutes from the mountain. Killington is unique because it is such a large mountain. It offers a variety of terrain. They also have a separate mountain called Pico, which is a family-run, family-oriented mountain. We were actually the first ones there on Sunday, and it was ski up, ski down. They didn't have to wait on lift, which was great. It gives it that old-time Vermont ski feel, which is really nice for the kids to experience. But everything else is pretty much the same. This year, we changed things a little bit with signups, and I think it worked very, very smoothly. One of the things I want to do for next year is I want to get the students more involved. The officers who they may be, I want them to be involved with the signups. We're moving to this age where all the kids have laptops, and if I can get everything digitally and streamline everything, it'll just make the evening go that much more efficient. Aside from, for both the Blue and the Killington trips, we do the signups all in one shot. So they come to the safety meeting that we have here in the auditorium or the cafeteria. We'll go through the PowerPoint of expectations and details about the trips, and then after that, the parents sign up, they write their checks, and then it's done. We do have safety meetings prior to both trips during one of our activity periods here, so the kids will come to the gym, we'll go over rules, regs, and things like that, so everybody knows what they're responsible for. We have the ability to hold their pass, and students on ski trips hate that. So they're pretty good. We really haven't had many issues as far as discipline or problems as far as either trip is concerned, really. And like I said, there's been a few issues with grades, but it's a very, very small minority.
You had said, I guess in here you said about about changing, if there was a reason that you would have to change the alternate weekend, right? Right, it's the end of February. So when do you decide that?
That's mainly because of weather, and that's happened in the past where there was a weather issue and we had to change the dates of the trip. I think it was because it was too cold that we couldn't go, so we just pushed it back a couple weekends. And we have a relationship with not only the Holiday Inn, Betty Larson Holiday Inn is great, and then our bus companies that we work with in the mountain, we've dealt with them for over 10 years. So they go out of their way to make sure that they can accommodate for us. So we've never had an issue as far as alternate transportation or anything like that.
I'm just wondering, what time did the students leave school on the, just the Blue Mountain trips on the Thursdays?
So the way it works is I'm not sure if you're familiar with the end of the day here. All the buses are up in the bus driveway out front. Our tour buses are over more so in front of North. So when the school buses leave, our tour buses pull up. So the kids come to a full day. They're pretty much all waiting there. They have to be dropped off with their equipment in the morning. We lock their equipment in the team locker rooms. That way nobody has access to it. At the end of the day, we unlock the locker rooms and they grab their stuff and wait out in front of the building. So as soon as the tour buses come up, kids get on, we take attendance, and then that's the way that the departure normally works. For the students that can't make it, they don't need to call, they don't need to tell me that they can't make it. At the end of the season, we give them their pass, and it has an extra trip loaded onto the card. Everything is electronic up there at Blue, so they don't lose out on a trip. If a kid has a lab or a test or things like that, they'll miss a trip just because they want to focus on what they have to do academically. So that happens to quite a few of the kids, actually. Sometimes kids don't want to go because their friends aren't coming, which is typical for a high school student. And that's how the Blue trips are run. We've had minor issues over the years. The 1 year a bus broke down, so they sent another bus, and the kids were inconvenienced for about an hour, but they got them there and they were fine. There was another year where, a kid got hurt and the bus had to wait because he was in the infirmary and we were trying to get hold of parents and things like that. I carry a notebook with me on every trip, and it has all the medical forms, so if something happens, we're right there, we have all the kids' information. Most times it's not that serious, but in the event of something that is pretty major, we have it pretty well taken care of. And then they'll decide where the kids go, whether it's Palmerton Hospital or Lehigh Valley, or St. Luke's, I believe. We always have teachers that sit in the lodge, and it's a great opportunity for them to get some work done. So they'll come up and they'll sit there, and they're kind of a point person, so if something happens and they can't get a hold of me, I don't have my phone ring or whatever the case is, then they'll go to them, they have a copy of this, and they're kind of the coordinator down at the bottom of the mountain. Pretty much all the students know where the chaperones kind of hang out in the lodge. We always go to the base lodge, the valley lodge, just because it's not as crowded. There's all the same amenities there at the Summit Lodge, and it's a good place to meet. It's a good meeting point. So, but all of the issues that we've had over the years have been pretty minor.
Anybody else have questions about the Torrington trip? Okay, so everyone's okay, we put both of them on the agenda on Monday? Yep, okay.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Question. Excuse me, sir, what is your name?
Jason Plow.
Plow?
Plowa, Plawa.
Okay, so the next trip is the football team bonding trip. Are you going to talk about that, Dr. Bovard? Since,
I'm going to pass this right over to Mrs. Schmidt, who worked with Mr. Hollenbach on this.
okay.
Okay. I know that the board members received information on this regarding this proposed trip. This is something new for the football team that's being proposed. It's a senior bonding trip for the senior players. It would be happening, it's a canoe trip on the Delaware River, August 9th to 11th, which is a week before the team starts camp. They have that week off. As Jeff had put in here, it'll be taken from 12 to 16 seniors. Supervision will be 4 coaches and an experienced guide and himself for a total of 6 adults. He attached an agenda at the bottom, basically showing their daily routine, which again, this is a first time for this trip, so what he gave here is the agenda. I guess you could say is tentative. It might be changed a little bit just as they go through their days there. Jeff, like he's put in the letter here, he's done this trip before, I believe, with family and friends, so he's quite familiar with it. I know there were questions that were raised in regard to if there's any medical issues, as is stated in there. There are rangers on the river. They have 24-hour emergency phone numbers, access to the roads. The one guide, he is trained in CPR and first aid in case of any emergencies. The cost per player will be $50, and they will be camping along the river in tents. And also one other thing, I believe, they'll be transporting themselves. It'll be adults that'll be transporting the students.
It doesn't say anywhere about the cost for the chaperones, or the chaperones pay the same cost, or are they?
I believe so,
Free,
because
or are
this
they
is
not
not,
paying anything?
it's not a booster club supported trip that, you know, the booster, I know that the booster club's not paying for it, it's not funded through them, so, he gave the approximate cost of $50 per player. I mean, we could find out, I'm sure before Monday, you know, what the chaperone's cost is gonna be.
Any questions?
It's more of a comment, excuse me, than a question. Yeah. If we did have questions, like, why isn't the coach here? Is my
I can't
question.
speak for him.
That's the first question. I support them doing the trip, but they should at least, I think, this is the first time I can remember the board member doing the presentation for the event. So I'm still like processing that. I don't think it's that, it's kind of not a big deal in the big picture, but it's a really bad practice, I think. So I don't want that to stand in, when we have to vote on this or when it makes it to the agenda is a different thing, but somewhere this should get addressed to the coach, I think. And I know, Suzette, that you're in the football scene, you get all that, and I support those guys. And I think it's a great thing to do. This is just a bad way to do
It's not
it.
involving my son personally this year.
Okay.
You know, whether it does next year is different, but, you know, this, like I said, it's the first time for this year, and I'm, you know, looking at it from also a point of view that I do think that it's, you know, a good opportunity. I know that the baseball team does something very similar. And they've done this for quite a few years, and it's, always been a positive with them. So hopefully that would be, we'd have the same situation here.
No,
But I
I
understand
do
your
too.
comment,
I'm
too.
not gonna, say again what I just said, but that's my thoughts on it.
I agree with Mr. Casper, and I always ask to make sure that there is someone to present. In the past, we've always had the chaperone or the coach or the high school principal had time, had done the preparation to present, so I'll make sure I make this clear.
We just put that guy through all that.
Yeah. Well, they're the ones who best can answer the question. Even if you don't have any, they're the best person to answer the questions. I
And the
agree.
form is bad. That's it, I'm sorry.
So, do board members support putting it on the agenda for Monday night? Or, which, go ahead, Mr. Regoma.
I was going to say, if Mr. Hollenbach can show up at the board meeting, I agree with Mr. Casper and Dr. Bovard that it would be better if he were here to answer these questions going forward. So I would expect him to be at the board meeting at a minimum to help us.
I will ask.
I just want to make it clear that the plan wasn't for me to present this tonight. Okay?
I always email them and ask them to show up. I always email to make sure, please be here to present in case there are questions, so I'll follow up on that.
Right, and look what happens, because you weren't here. I mean, you weren't planning,
Yeah.
then you have to, then I say what I say, and it turns into this.
I have a problem with what you said.
Sorry.
All right, so are people okay if we put it on the agenda if Mr. Hollenbach can be here?
Or someone.
Or a representative from the football team?
To answer questions.
Okay, and if they can't, then, do we have a meeting in July?
I'll have somebody here.
Okay. I don't know that we have a meeting.
No,
We don't have an activities meeting.
No, but a board meeting?
no, if it's not done, if there's no one here for whatever reason, then we'll move it, just the action on it to July, so someone will be there, so that will hopefully
Okay.
encourage someone to be here.
All right. Okay, so that's it for this meeting. And then we are moving on to ad hoc. I don't have comments anywhere. After, at the end of all three?
At the end of all three.
Okay, all right, so we'll take public comment at the end of all three meetings. Okay, so moving on to the ad hoc committee.
First on the agenda tonight is the status of the Rams on the Rich campaign. And talk about advertising first, Joe?
Yep.
So far, we've had the board approve 4 contracts, and there's 2 contracts pending that'll be on your agenda on Monday night. The potential revenue when all are approved and in is $4,200.
And that would bring up under 8 where you have the total, then you put it all together, it looks like it would be $7,350. The other 2 are Chris Wolf Plumbing and Indian Valley Ambulance. And Aaron Kernan is finishing up the agreements for them. So they'll be on the agenda for Monday night.
One issue having to do with the advertising signs, I had volunteered to reach out to the business communities through the chambers of commerce to solicit businesses to participate, and the request from both chambers is that if we are members, they would be happy to let us solicit advertising to their members. And as far as I know, we're not members of either chamber.
The school district.
Right. So there would be a cost involved in us becoming a member of either chamber. Not sure what that would be. Both of them have sliding scales based on number of employees. but I also think they have nonprofit and governmental rates as well. So it would be significantly cheaper than if we had to pay per employee, since we would be probably the largest employer of either one of their chambers. So if we want to go that route, to be able to solicit their members, we would need to become members. Now, there's benefits to becoming a chamber member beyond just the fundraising as well. Gives us a seat at the table for some other issues that may involve the school district and could be beneficial in the long run.
Is there another way to get a list without becoming a member? I mean, because I'm sure there are ways to get
Yeah,
a list from people.
not through the chamber. The only way they'll release their information is if you're a member. If there's another way to do it, I'm not familiar with it. I would imagine Bucks County might have a directory of businesses that would be helpful. I've never dealt with that. I've never asked them for that, but that perhaps could be a way to go.
Right, so could we look into, I mean, well, seeing how much it costs to become a member of the
Right.
chamber, and if there's another way to get a list of local businesses?
Yeah, because I
Of course.
think if it wasn't us, and if a resident went and requested a list of Chamber of Commerce
Right.
businesses, would they provide that?
No,
They wouldn't,
no, that's only available to members.
even if you want to patronize their businesses?
I mean, that's one of the benefits of being a member of the chamber is having access to those other chamber members through the chamber.
And they allow people to use the chamber list to solicit?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we should look into the,
Okay.
you know, both options, becoming a member and then finding getting a list from somewhere, another source. And what is Indian Valley Ambucks?
What?
Can you explain it?
It's the Association of Businesses. I'll let Dave answer.
Okay. Indian Valley, Dr. Rudd said Indian Valley Ambucks is going to be on our agenda on Monday night, so just wondering what they are.
It's the American Business Clubs. That's what AMBUC stands for. They have chapters from our company. Our CFO from our company was active in Collegeville area, and I asked for local people and found Indian Valley had a chapter. And I contacted them and they agreed to support us, but it's AMBUC, American Business Clubs is what it stands for.
Okay.
So, and again, as far as advertising is concerned,
With the signs, I have a vendor lined up who will produce the signs for us. I just need to provide him with the artwork, and a couple of the people who have already paid for their signs have provided me with the artwork, so we're in good shape as far as that's concerned. It's only about a 10-day, 2-week process from the time I give the art, yeah.
Okay, and we should, we'll be able to be up for the beginning of the football
Absolutely.
season?
Yes.
And do we decide, are we going to put an expiration date on the sign? Or an origin date so that we can see when the signs need to come down?
We'll have a list of where they're up there, so they're three, it's in their contract, so.
But could we at least, I mean, the expiration date, if they want to keep their sign up, then the expiration date would be wrong, but maybe we should put a date when the sign goes up. Like, could it just say September
Actual part of
2015?
the sign?
Yeah, just on the bottom, could that be part of it?
It could be, but I don't know if the supporter, the advertisers themselves would want that. It doesn't.
Well, I mean, but it could be a positive thing, like, you know, a supporter
Well,
since, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless you
since-
worded it in that way.
Right.
Supporter since,
Yeah, September 2015, or August 2015.
but would that have had to have been in the contract? Or
I don't think so.
no?
Supporter beginning 2015. That way
Yeah, or
they have it
advertiser
accessible.
since, yeah.
Then they can do a new one and still keep when they start,
Right.
like American Express, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, on your cards it says a member since.
Never since.
Right. But that way we can keep track, and if they get a new sign, I mean, every 3 years, then it's easy to
Right.
see when their contract's up, just by looking at the signs.
Okay,
Is that all on it?
that's it for advertising.
offers is, we'll talk about sponsors.
Right now, we don't have sponsors. What we should do is make sure that we know we are now getting some questions, so that means there is interest out there. What are the benefits of being a sponsor? And Christine and I talked a little bit about this.
You mean the Green and White Club?
Oh,
Well, the sponsors.
oh, no,
are-
sorry, sponsors are there, okay.
Sponsors are the big ones.
Nothing, all right,
No,
now,
nothing new.
nothing new.
Yeah.
So, because we have the item for Build It for Bud, and Jeff's not here to give us an update on that, so that's the only sponsor we're waiting for, so, okay,
Do
sorry.
you want to go right to Green and White Club?
Thank you.
There you go.
There are some questions being asked by people who have bought some of our signs, asking about what are the benefits of being a sponsor, and I received an email from a lady who bought some pavers. So I guess we should actually, as a organization, or as a committee, delineate what are the advantages of being a member of the Green and White Club. I mean, we had talked about making sure that if you are a member of the Green and White Club, and Joe can jump in anytime he wants, he's on this one as well, because Joe and I have talked about this, is that your name would be listed in all the programs that we give out. So if it's a football program, that part of the requirement is that it should be in there. If there's a soccer brochure, it should be in there. If they have a Rams on the Ridge band tournament, which we've had in the past, and I'm sure we're going to have them down the road, that should be there too, so that people know, who those Green and White Club members are. And we also talked about, they should, based on the level that they have, be invited to an activity once a year or more, based on if they're giving, higher levels of dollars. Because those tickets don't cost us anything. We never actually have turned anybody away for any game or activity up there. So I would say, if you want, I can work with the co-chairs and come up with something to bring back to you and have you look at that. I think these are the ideas. Did I miss anything, Christine?
No, that's it. Yeah, although I think, was it the person who emailed had suggested having a laminated pass or something, that you get so many tickets or, right, so we would just have to
Yeah.
decide, do people get tickets to one game a year? If you're in the white, if you're a white member, do you get 2 passes to one event? If you're green, which is $1,000 to $4,999, do you get, if you get 4 tickets to an event, a football game, and going up, and then gold is $5,000 to $9,999, and platinum is $10,000 and up.
So if you want, we can work on that, because probably ought to be a ticket to every one of the events they have, because not everybody will be a football fan. They actually they may be interested in the band, they may be interested in any other activity we have up there. We don't really charge for evening games, like the soccer's in the evening, football, I know they charge for some of the band things, so we can look at that, but we can work on something to bring it back, but I think there ought to be some benefits, because now they're starting to ask questions, which means somebody's thinking about writing a check. Yeah, so.
Dave, go.
Yeah, what about just something like a sweatshirt that says Green and White Club supporter, and maybe a special place in the stands that they could sit together, just to be recognition is, I think, the primary thing that we can give people. That's what the name of the brochure means and all that, and if people could see, hey, he's a Green and White supporter by the sweatshirt that he's wearing, or a t-shirt or something, it could be a relatively small amount of money that would cost us to do something like that, but it gives you some kind of visual club. I belong. It's obvious to people that I'm a supporter, and I think that's the kind of status that we want to make sure people have.
Maybe even announce them, have one event at each one of the venues and just have them be there, just announce them, recognize them.
Well, didn't we talk also about having a reception, maybe at the opening, and saying anybody who? Good.
A lot of big sponsors in pro side and semi or lower levels of pro, it doesn't kill us to announce it every game, every home game. That's why they spend the money. To me, I think. So you say, thanks to our Green and White Club sponsors, how many are there going to be? A lot. And you just run through their name real quick or whatever. But that's what they like. That's what the people that write the checks want to hear, I think.
I agree, status is.
And that doesn't really cost us anything to have the announcer read it. I agree.
Right, well, we have the sponsors who, we've had the sponsor for the scoreboard and the entrances, we have sponsors. And then the Green and White Club is more geared, is smaller than the sponsors, yeah. So you're saying read all of them, whoever's, like,
How many do you think we'll have, 10?
yeah, no. Yeah, it won't take long.
Not now, hopefully it will be, it will grow.
Yeah, so what do people think about the tickets,
So,
tickets to an event or?
yeah, I think any recognition, I think more important, if these are people who are advertisers, more importantly, to mention their name at the game, over, not just a sign, but to mention their name over the game would be really, I think, really valued by the.
These aren't necessarily advertisers. The Green and White Club is not necessarily advertisers.
Right.
That's what
It doesn't matter, they
Yeah.
still pay.
No, I know, I'm just saying, Dave said advertisers. Sure, supporters, obviously.
They're more likely to be individuals than
Yeah,
families.
I think
Because
it's
If
families
there's too many of them, then I don't see how we could announce each of them,
Well,
but
there aren't too many yet.
I know that hopefully there will be, whatever.
When we get too many, we just say Green and White Club.
Please stand.
You know who you are. And not to get off the track, but giving away tickets, I mean, last year, you'd see a lot of people out there. It's kind of new, but I want to give away less tickets. I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but everybody gets in for free. Maybe, if that's the case, we should just let everybody in for free. Not just someone who knows someone that works at the hot dog stand, or you know what I mean? I'm thinking, sir, I'm not kidding around. It sounds bad to say that, but if you put 5,000 people in there, and then you do the math on the receipts, and it comes out to 50 cents each, that's just a way for us to make up the cost. And it's not, what is it, $5 it's going to be again next year? It's not the end of the world, $5. But I think there's someone in the audience who has questioned this in the past before about keeping track of the money. It's not, I don't think we're losing the money, I just don't think we're collecting it from everybody. I know this is not the meeting for that, so I
I know, I was just
apologize.
going to say, not to deviate from what we're talking about here, but part of that is because of, youth groups and so forth coming in as well, that we want to involve in the community. So again, not to deviate, but.
And I don't want to be like the Grinch either, but I
No.
still think that a lot of people get in and maybe we need to evaluate that a little.
I think too, personally, I think, what David said about the reserved seating area, whether they sit there or not, that's irrelevant, but if, we had an area that was designated, part of the Green and White Club, or the T-shirt. I mean, I speak from experience. I went to Penn State, my son goes to Penn State. They have the Blue and White Society. Does anybody really, truly know what it is other than writing your check to them and getting your T-shirt that says Blue and White Society, beyond that? But it identifies
Recognition.
them, exactly. So I don't think that that's a bad idea either to consider. Anything else? Blue, or blue and white, the green and white, I'm sorry. It's just in the, pavers, Joe.
Pavers. We got a nice little boost in sales of pavers from the Blackboard Connect message that went out, asking, asking parents if they thought that would make a nice graduation present. So as of right now, as of today, this includes everything that's in-house. We've sold 27 8x8 pavers and 8 12x12 pavers. That's, if I did my gazettes right, that's $4,700 in revenue.
How often do the newsletters and that go out throughout the summer? Like, do we think it's worth?
We probably should.
Again?
Yeah,
To-
definitely.
It obviously reach people, or even as a reminder, even though we're past graduation,
Right.
it's still something that people can do. Once you pay your college tuition bill.
Do you have any samples
Samples of
to show
pavers?
people?
We don't. We have not produced any.
Like maybe around the summer, the kids are around, they could have it on their table and saying, this is what it looks like. It's like sort of impulse buying happens there.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to have them down for the beginning, for the first game?
That's a question for Jeff Balfour, I believe.
Because I think if we could have that and then have information,
Right.
yeah, or just, people who came and then send an email afterwards, say, did you see those, papers?
Everyone who has paid so far has given to be the inscription that they want on their paper. So we could start producing them anytime now.
And then get an actual picture out on the newsletter.
Yep, yep, we can do that.
Oh, yeah, right, that would be good, just to sample, and then even if we could have one on display before it's put out, you know.
One of each.
Picture of it on the website.
Yes, we could definitely do that.
Yeah, and I guess, so, who will check with Jeff about whether we can, get them put down for the first game?
We'll check on it.
Yeah.
Find out.
Yeah, and then the tech school, they had offered to do the installation, yeah. Okay, the flagpole memorial. Joe or Bruce or Mr. Snyder?
I have John out in the audience, and so he can go up to the podium and we'll deal with that. He has his design finished. We're looking at this point now, we've set up, we have not received any money for checks for this yet. So I know John's been working on it, so we turn it over to him, see if he has an update on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. LeVar. Thanks to the committee who has worked with us. This is an idea which is very close to becoming a reality. Dr. LeVar has worked with me. Joe has worked with me. Your assistant principal, high school principal, Scott Hagan, did a lot of research into the names so that we came up with the rank for all these individuals. And I'd be amiss if I did not mention my wife, who came up with the last individual who we could not find school records for, because the plaque out here for him is Dennis Gaiman, which is what he went by in high school. But his first name was Earl. And it was kind of emotional for me. My wife said, "What was Gaiman a year or two behind us? Let's look at the, I think she had an older brother. She pulled out the yearbook from 1961. There's the picture. Earl Dennis Gaiman. It went by Denny. I put it up on, pulled it up just for the heck of it, put his name into the internet, and it comes up, Lieutenant Junior Grade Dennis Gaiman, lost at sea, Vietnam coast. He was practicing touch and goes off the aircraft carrier and went down, body and plane, never recovered. So it hit me that morning sitting there that there was a person that I knew vaguely, was a classmate of my brother's. When I mentioned to him, he is now going to be a contributor to this memorial. But it's been a trip for me too, finding some of this stuff out. Funding, I have a check here tonight for $3,000. There'll be, within the next week or so, $2,000 coming in from a total of $1,000 from each of the 2 American Legion boats. I have confirmed donations of another $2,000 and possible $1,000 to $2,000 additional unconfirmed. So we are well on our way. And Joe has made up a press release which was sent to Bucks County Herald, which is already applied in there. I think Joe has a little connection there to get it in early. Have not seen it in the Intel, and I did not get the News Herald, so I'm not unsure about that. And I believe, Joe, I don't know if you have, or you were going to send it to what, over 2,000 people that you have on your email contact list. It is now going to be going out directly to my fellow class members from the class of 64, which is another close to 300. Also, next Wednesday, I have an interview with a reporter from the Intel. This is the same reporter, and I don't know how many of you saw it, had a front page story about Lieutenant or Lance Corporal Mininger, who died 10 years ago. I thought it was a very excellent article. I contacted him, told him what we're doing. He's going to be interviewing with me. Also, John Hollenbach has become involved, the mayor, or sheriff, or whatever you want to call him, former CEO of the bank, classmate of ours. He has sent letters to, the first letter he sent off went to the governor. He also sent a letter to the county commissioners, also to all our state representatives and our federal representative and the 2 senators. Hopefully we'll hear something back from them. He did hear back from one of the county commissioners, first of all, saying that he didn't have very good, his grammar was wrong at one point in his letter. John said, I forgot to tell her I graduated from Pennridge. But he's working on that, and will be helpful in many other ways with his background. The memorial panels, as Dr. Bavard said, we got the final draft of those back. They look good to us at this point in time. The way it's set up as far as paying for them, it's going to be 50% upon signing the documents to formally go ahead with this, which is $5,286, of which we're very close to that amount. And if we're short a little bit, I will put a couple extra dollars in to make sure we have that. The balance is due on delivery of the flags. They are both 3x5 panels on black granite. Now, the question is, from me to you folks, is these agreements, should they be, whose name should they be put in? Our group is really, like you, an ad hoc committee. We have no official grounds or anything. Plus, if it goes through us, we're no way set up to be a nonprofit. Should it have the school's name on it? That's the question.
I had explained to John that what we need to do before we do any ordering is have the total money amount collected for this. This is the first priority, because if not, if there's no other money collected, the board did not agree to pay for the plaques. What the board agreed to do was support the wall. So I don't think we're going to have a problem with getting the money, but I think that the money needs to be the total balance. The 2 sets of $5,286 needs to be in the account. We already have a spot on the website that Joe put up there for people to contribute to this. I just don't want to see the school district in, because it's not something we had agreed to buy. I think it's fair that the second part of the money, which is their 50% of the wall, can come later. I don't think that's going to be a problem with the money coming. I explained to John, I think the good problem we're going to have is I think we're going to get more than we need for both sets, the $6,500, which is approximately half of the wall cost, and then the cost of about $10,500 for this. So my recommendation, I told John, is that we need to have all of that before we can order. And so I asked him, how can I help him with this? I know Joe is sending information out, but we need to have all that collected first, because the board did not agree to pay for the panels unless you want to change your mind and do that. But we were trying to stay within the fundraising for that. So,
however, we can accept the checks made out to the Pennridge School District,
yes.
Pennridge War Memorial.
Correct.
We can accept those checks.
I understand that.
And keep an accounting of what comes in.
Can we go forward if I personally commit to you the full amount from my personal account?
I guess I need to check with our solicitor, because I think
Which you could do was hold
yeah,
that.
we would have to have it here and then reimburse you back.
Right.
'Cause that way the
Just
money's
hold the
there.
check. I mean, I'm sure that, delivery of this is not going to be until sometime probably in August. And what I'm going to personally do is guarantee you with a check of mine, unless you want it to be a certified check, or you want my credit card.
I would have to check.
What's the estimated time for creating the plaque?
I don't really know that, other than the last email from him, and I think I have it in here.
Or a date that it must be ordered by, in order to have it.
I'm not sure whether I copied that in there out here or not, but we are at the point where he did say that we are, we have to act soon in order to meet that deadline. That's why I gave him the go-ahead, and his email back to me was, 50%. And they need to set up a sales agreement so that whose name's going to be on that. That's going to be a big, we can't do anything with the sales agreement until we find out whose name is going to be.
My recommendation is that once the money comes in, the school district can write the check for that, but we need to make sure that we have both sets that are here. and not just, you know, a commitment or a guarantee, because we're a public entity, somebody could change their mind on that, and then the school district, because that's not something, unless the board changes what they're doing, that we have requested. We had said we would work in partnership, so I don't think it's gonna be that hard for us to raise the funds, but,
Bruce, could we have the solicitor develop a contract just like we did with First Savings with the other sponsors